All right, welcome to the program, The Desk on Global Television. Sorry for starting behind schedule due to some issues beyond our control and trying to make sure you get the very best of today's analysis of all the big talking points as we look at very interesting issues making the rounds in Africa's biggest black nation. My name is Anthony Momodi. Welcome to today's program, The Desk. We'll be looking at the strike action as Labour suspends a strike for 5 days. We'll be looking at the organized Labour has suspended its nationwide strike for 5 days to allow for uninterrupted meeting with the tripartite committee on the new national minimum wage. So we'll be looking at the implication of this suspension and what it means as the federal government has promised they are going to increase the wages from 60,000 naira. So how much time will tell, and the Labour has given them 7 days to get it sorted out or strike resumes. We'll be looking at the promotion exercise in the Nigerian police force where the IG has decried the issue of bribery claims against the Nigerian police force. We'll be looking at that issue squarely, and also we'll be looking at the security challenges police to establish drone system is what the Inspector General of Police has informed the Nigerians. We'll be looking at if that is going to help quell the insecurity ravaging the nation. So that's another talking point, especially. We'll also be taking to Rivers, where the worst is over, says Sim Fubara, the executive governor of Rivers State. These and all that talking point is what we'll be looking at on today's edition of the program, The Desk. Stay with us. All right, welcome to the most compelling talk show on TV, The Desk on Global Television. And it's time for us to look at the issues making the rounds in Africa's biggest black nation, Nigeria. It's no longer news that the country was thrown into total darkness in the last 24 hours due to the strike action organized by the organized labor, which has now been suspended for 5 days to allow for uninterrupted meeting with the tripartite committee on the new national minimum wage. We've got in the live studio the head information and public affairs in the person of Ukpa Benson, who is a chieftain of the Nigeria Labour Congress. Good evening. Thank you for joining us in the studios.
My pleasure.
All right, Nigerians quite in support of NLC's actions in trying to ensure that Nigerian workers get the best of what they deserve. Can you give us in good perspective what led to, what convinced the NLC to trust the government enough to, suspend the strike for the next 5 days?
Well, you know, NLC has always negotiated in good faith. In this instance, it was not only NLC, it was NLC and TUC. They negotiated in good faith and expected the government to have a change of behavior and not observing breach like in the past. They made their commitment to renew the initiative.
Okay, let's look at this direction. Looking at, is NLC convinced that the federal government is going to give Nigerian workers a decent wages that might get up to 100,000 plus? And is there any chance that there's going to be a revert of the electricity tariff?
Well, I just said to you that as for NLC, it continues to negotiate in good faith, and it expects the government to do the same. If NLC had said, no, we are no longer talking, what that would have led to would have been continued social aggression from both parties. But NLC and TUC believe that there is no use, there is no need of such a behavior. So they decided to take a risk with the government to say, well, you have promised us that you will do ABCD. You promised that wage increase will now be, that something will be added to the 60,000. That thing you have not specified. You have promised us that you will specify it in the next couple of days. So we're giving you a chance to so do. So I do not think there is anything wrong with trusting your opponent or your social partner, even if the behavior of that partner in the past was not so good.
All right, there were some reports we got from the media that suggested that when the NLC met with the government recently, as of last night and this morning, there were heavy presence of security agencies, the DSS, the Army, and all that. Some insinuated that that was a way of trying to intimidate Labour, and that if Labour did not agree to play ball with the government, like suspend it for these 5 days and talk with government, they were going to arrest the leadership of the trade unions. Was that any truth to that insinuation?
I can attest to the heavy presence of the military at the venue of the meeting, which was completely unnecessary. However, I cannot directly say what the intention of government was, whether it was to intimidate or to arrest or to cause bodily injury to the leadership of NLC and TUC. But of course, when you pick up, when you seek to do this, or when you seek to visit violence, or to cause an unlawful arrest of the leaders of the 2 labor centers, you are inviting more trouble, okay? Of course, there will be consequences. And beyond the reaction of the organized labor family across the country, there will be consequences from across the continent and from across the world. But there is a greater risk in what the government has done. By introducing the military into purely labor relations matters, the government is expanding the domains of conflict. And it is also taking an undue risk. Those who play with the dragon, I'll leave it at that.
Oh, that sounds more like the government has to be careful. We had the Attorney General of the Federation also give a subtle threat to the organized labor by saying 6 months jail time awaits the leaders for even embarking on this. Do you think the government is going to, after this process, probably still rearrest the leadership? And when you say government is also expanding the domain of violence, are we likely to see conflict? Are we likely to see conflict break out if, after these 5 days, Labour decides to continue its strike actions and government on its own part decides to invoke its powers using the machineries of security architecture?
Well, you've asked multiple questions in one. I'm going to try to take them one by one. On the threat by the Attorney General of the Federation, do permit me to observe that the Attorney General is a very powerful man in the contemplation of the law. Everybody knows the word of the Attorney General carries a lot of weight. I should not be taken lightly. However, I must say that his threat this time was misguided. We fulfilled all righteousness. We fulfilled all the conditions precedent before we embarked on this strike action. And of course, I mean the insinuation one gets from by threats from the Attorney General like this at the drop of a hat is that the Attorney General wants to gag everybody. No civil dissent. No form of peaceful protest. No room for alternative viewpoint. But I do not think his powers extend to that. He knows that himself. So his threat, I would say, go to no issue. And if in the event our government acts in breach of its commitment and we resume our strike action and it causes our arrest, so be it. Let them be prepared to build prisons across the country because it should be prepared to take all of us in. We are in millions. And I tell you, there are other Nigerians who are sympathetic to this cause. They will be prepared to go to prison alongside trade union people. And I tell you something, in the years gone by in Ghana, the colonial period, when the British were putting the nationalists, those who wanted independence for Ghana, those who were agitated, the British took delight in putting them in prison. And the guys thought carefully and said, oh, fine, we're going to dignify this. And they started wearing badges, PG, prison graduate. And that later became a status symbol. So we'll be quite ready to wear such symbols. Prison graduate, courtesy of Attorney General of the Federation, Chief Fagbemi.
Can we say the government is highly insensitive for government to join negotiations, agree to put 3,000 on top of 57,000 as something they can add, pricing Nigerian workers in such dismay, knowing fully well that the Nigerian workers are the engine room of the nation, whereas they earn in millions with lots of incentives, but do not see the Nigerian worker as a group that deserves lofty wages, especially with the current economic situation in the country.
Thank you very much for your kind words, Tony. The government's counter-offer was an insult to our collective sense of worth and our psyche. It was contemptible and miserable. And of course, you know, they couldn't put that to anything. They couldn't say, this is what should go to your accommodation. This is what should go to your transport. This is what should, they couldn't do that.
Do you think that was deliberate because they knew?
They knew. Let me tell you,
it wasn't worth it.
Tony, Tony, they just chose to insult us. And I tell you, when you begin to marginalize your workforce, you are taking an undue risk. When you create poor citizens, you create a poorer country. Do you understand? So there is dignity in labor. Even the holy books, the Bible and the Quran, they are explicitly clear on the reward for the laborer. Look at how much did we ask for? Initially we asked for 615,000. We came down. We're now on 494,000. We split this up. We say 40,000 for accommodation for a family of 6. Tell me, in all honesty, where you're going to get accommodation for 40,000. Education, we say 50,000. Tell me where you're going to get education for 50,000. Feeding, using 500 naira per meal, we say 270,000 a month. Of course, you and I know a bag of rice is 80,000, 70,000, 100,000, so on and so forth. We did all of that, leaving no room for social obligations, leaving no room for care of the extended family, of even the parents. Nothing. Just, we did that, and of course, it was a proposal that you say flying by the seat of your pants. Okay? Yet the government was courageous enough to make a counter offer of 48,000. Later added 3,000 like Maggie, just a moment, and then go to 60,000 and then refuse to discuss. By the way, how much is 60,000? 60,000 is $37. I was speaking with VOA at 2 o'clock this morning, and when when the journalist asked, what is 60,000? I said $37. I said, is it $37 every day we're asking for? And I said, $37 for 30 days for a family of 6. So you see, when these guys pay themselves heavily, when they have free and unfettered access to our common patrimony, to the resources, when they have direct access to the national till, nobody is asking them no to stop. But all we're saying is that give to workers
what they deserve.
What they deserve. And when you have, and let me tell you, the economies of most states in the country are driven by workers' wages. Once salaries stop, everything stops. I'm quoting my late friend, Colonel Aminu Isa Kontagora. Once salaries stop, everything stops. So the moment you pauperize workers, that is the beginning of the end of your own state economy.
All right, let's look at, with this though, can we safely say, what do you think the Nigerian people, electorates, and other professional bodies can deduce from the kind of government we have right now, with the way they treat the Nigerian workers? Have we seen any sense of sincerity? Because if we look at the fact that recently about 19 million plus was voted for a pilgrimage issue, but things that affected the Nigerian people directly, can we say government is misplacing its priority?
Yeah. Thank you. I will just put it in a few words. Capacity to pay or to set a national minimum wage benchmark and to pay is not dependent on surplus resources. It is dependent on political will, prioritization of workers, recognition of the fact that the workers drive the economy, they're the engine. There is a synergic effect. Once workers have capacity, they begin to purchase, patronize services, products, and that cranks the economy. It is a synergic engine. But once workers lack capacity, as we have presently, I'm sure you must have read the papers of manufacturers saying their warehouses are spilling with unsold goods. It tells you that there is capacity deficit along the chain. They can no longer pass on that extra cost that they have attached to their goods and services. But I tell you, it is just the beginning. Why? The full effects of the 250% tariff hike is yet to come. By the time it starts coming in, the situation is going to be worse for the manufacturers, for other Nigerians, and for the entire economy. Which brings me to the statistical reality of our situation. At the moment, owing to government's bad policies, beginning from the ill-advised removal of petroleum fuel subsidy, instead of dealing with the crime in it, Mr. President chose to deal with the victims. Instead of dealing with the criminals involved in it, he chose to deal with the... I'm coming.
Okay.
Yeah, he chose to deal with the victims. And because of... He did not deal with the crime, or with the criminals inside the subsidy or
cartel,
whatever.
yeah.
It's continuing. As it is, government is paying something through the back door. Okay? It has not been able to solve the problem of fuel subsidy or not, because its perception, its understanding of the problem is patently faulty. Faulty. Now, the second policy that I'll tell you is equally bad is the mindless devaluation of the naira in the name of merging multiple exchange rates for an independent, an import-dependent economy like ours. You never do that. That is harakiri. That is suicide. But in any case, I'm going to outline all that, and I'm going to let you. I will just let you 1 second. So, but government did that, and now the naira shot from 350 to the dollar to 1,900. Now hovering around 1,600. The third bad policy was and still remains the tariff hike in violation of the covenants that before government does this type of thing, there should be consultations. But in any case, how on earth do you raise tariff hike by 250%? If you raise tariff hike by between 5 to 10% in any of the Western capitals, there will be a revolution. There'll be blood on the street. But here they are raising 250%. And now the last one is the 26.5% interest rate that the CBN just announced. This now further exposes companies or entities that went to the market to borrow money. How do they pay back? First, they're dealing with come on. So all of this now put the burden on them, makes the environment highly toxic, leading to inflation 33.7%, food inflation 40%, exchange rate 1,670%. So all the statistics are bad for business, and that is why more and more businesses are going to leave Nigeria.
All right, there's been some accusation against the Nigerian workers that their productivity level has been poor and low. Do you agree with the government or the school of thought that productivity on the part of Nigerian workers have not been top-notch, and that's why government hasn't also been able to generate as much income as it should?
First, Tony, now when people say the kind of things, they say that the productivity of workers has been low, I ask myself, and I also ask them, what have been the set goals or targets that these workers did not meet? You should be able to measure productivity. When you don't, first of all, you don't even know what you want to do. When you don't have the instrument for measuring productivity, you turn around to say that workers are not performing. Not performing what? And sometimes too, there is temptation to mix up the private sector mentality and the public sector psychology. It is important for people to differentiate between this.
But do you agree that the public sector, they seem like lackadaisical in terms of improving government productivity or making ends, ensuring that government, gets value for its effort, unlike the private sector where you have no choice but to deliver the goods or you get sacked?
Tony, I cannot stay here in this forum and tell you that the productivity in the public sector is lower than the productivity in the private sector. We've got to look at the fundamentals. What are their objectives? What are the tools available? What is the reward regime? You got to, what are the targets? You have to put all of these things down before you become judgmental.
Okay, let's move away from that. Let's now focus on in the next 5 days. There's going to be a series of meetings between Labour and the federal government. What is the organized Labour looking forward to put forward before the government? Are they going to be sticking to the 494,000 naira as a way, or are they going to come down to say 300,000 or 200,000 in order to ensure that within these 5 days a very concrete national minimum wage is achieved?
Let me tell you this. We have been flexible and we intend to be flexible. We equally expect the government to be flexible and realistic. We have given our team the mandate to go out there and negotiate. The difference between our team and the government's team is that the government's team, they have their hands tied behind their back. They cannot negotiate. But our team can negotiate. They are free to negotiate and report back. So the onus now rests on the government.
So can you give us an idea how much Labour is looking at?
I cannot tell. I say we have given them the latitude, our team the latitude. Okay? But take note of this. We are not fixated on
the 400,000.
494,000.
So you can go for 300.
As realistic as it is, as highly realistic as it is, we are not fixated on that. What we are fixated on is on the value. If government today decides to create value around the naira, I assure you, we'll be ready to take as low as even 10,000. And let me tell you this. In 1981, when the national minimum wage was first paid, national minimum wage was paid in the country by the Shagari government. That was 1981. It was 125 naira, not even up to 1,000 naira. It was 125 naira. And it was more than enough. Reason being that there was value around the naira, because that translated to $188 a month. Now, 60,000 naira translates to no more than $37. So our fixation is with value, not with figures.
All right. We also did get some disturbing news from the spokesperson of the Transmission Company of Nigeria, Ndidi Mba, the spokesperson who said Labour did, assault some of the officers in Bini substation, where some of them were injured in the bid to force them out of the control rooms. How can you substantiate that there was some physical assault?
I am not the one to substantiate. It is Tony Mba who should substantiate his allegation. But I tell you something.
That's Ndidi Mba.
Ndidi Mba, who is the one who should substantiate his allegation. As you and I know, who alleges
has the burden.
Yeah. Must prove. But I tell you something. We have a rich history of peaceful protests. We don't break a twig. We don't insult. We don't assault. So certainly, if some staff of Transition Company of Nigeria were assaulted, I do not think they were assaulted by members of NLC. They should look elsewhere. And if, in an unlikely event, that they were assaulted by members of Nigeria Labour Congress, then we should begin to look for the underlying reasons. What led to that? Even as I insist, we don't break a twig, we don't point an assaulting finger in anybody's face.
All right, let's look at, just give us a picture of the meeting, the first meeting you had today with the federal government. What was the body language of the federal government? Did they look really positive? We know that George Akume, the secretary to the government, was in the meeting. Was Labour convinced that the government is likely to give us something very positive?
It is not for me to say. What was it Shakespeare said in Macbeth? That there's no art to reach the mind's construction on the face. Something like that. I hope I'm getting my lines correct.
Yeah.
Okay. So we don't have that technology in our team to be able to decode what governments...
The sincerity of the government.
Yeah, I mean, their intendment or their intention of what they intend to do. We really do not whatever, because sometimes when they are talking with you, they come across as...
Sincere.
Yeah. But what you get afterwards is a different thing. And that's why I'm telling you that, unlike our team, their hands are tied behind their back.
That's the government.
The government's team,
well,
yes.
When you say tied behind their backs, all right, let's look at that talking point about the government team, their hands tied behind their back. What's the insinuation? Are you saying they are already streamlined not to, give a better, negotiation package for the Nigerian workers?